Daily Dose of Rust, where our goal is to make Rust a household name in the programming world, from servers to desktops and mobile applications, web apps, and more. We are here to show you why Rust should be at the top of your list for any project. And in this series, we'll be treating error handling in Rust. If you're familiar with other languages out there, when it comes to error handling, you start talking about exceptions. So errors are usually handled using exceptions, or in try-catch blocks. But Rust takes a different approach. And in this video, we're going to take a look at the Result Enum, which is very critical to understand error management in Rust. Okay, in a later video, we treated the options enum, which is very helpful and which is what Rust uses to work against the null referencing. In this case, the results enum is what Rust uses for error handling specifically. Now, this is what it looks like. You have a result, you have an enum called result. So this is what the results enum looks like. It's very simple, just like the options enum. Okay, it has two variants, okay and error. Now you can see that each of them accepts a value, a generic type value. So you are just saying t could be any type at any point. Okay, if you are calling results with strings, then this has to be strings. So the error variant accepts a value of type key. Now Rust already defined this for us, so we don't need to define it again. Okay, and to demonstrate this, I'm going to show you a few examples. Now, as you already know, the match expression is usually used to match against each variant of an enum. You should check out this video where I explained the match expression really well, and also this one where I also explained enums and how they work and how you can use them with match expressions. Now, let's build a very simple program here. Let's say we want to write a program where a function will accept the day of the week, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then return the day that matches it in the week. Let's say we start counting from 0. Okay, let's say we start counting from 0 to 6. 0 will be Sunday, while 6 will be Saturday. So you give the function the day in numbers, and then the function will return the day in words. Okay, so let's say we have a function that we call, let's just call it get day of the week, and then this function will accept a parameter called day, and then let's say it's going to be of type i32. Okay, it doesn't even need to get up to i32. Let's just say u, because it will always be unsigned ends. Let's just say u8. Okay, because it can only go from 0 to 6. So in order to optimize our memory, we use u8. Okay, which is just 8-bit data that can contain from 0 to 255. Now, but of course we don't need ownership of this, so we can just accept it by reference. Now the question now is, what are we going to return? You know that right now the u8 can accept a value of up to 255, but we don't need that. And if we have that, the days of the week are just 7. So if someone passes a value that is more than 7 here, it's going to be a problem. So in cases like this, what you will do in other languages is to maybe throw an exception when the value doesn't match, when the value is more than 7. Okay, but in Rust, you have to use the result enum here. So what we can do is to say, okay, since we don't know what it's gonna be, since we know that it might throw an error, what we can now do is to return the results enum. Okay, now inside here we give it a type of what it will be when it is correct. So for example, in fact, before I do this, let me show you what we need to return, as that will make more sense. Let's not provide what we are going to return for now. For now, let's use a match expression. We'll match day, and then we say if day is equal to 0, then we want to return Sunday. Okay, and let's do that for all the days till 6. I'll just fast forward the video to spare you the monotony of typing this all out. Now, if the value of day is 0, we return Sunday. If it is 1, we return Monday. 2 for Tuesday, 3 for Wednesday, then Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Now you can see that we used the underscore here, which will return invalid for other values. Okay, in the video I made for match expression, I explained how the match expression works in Rust and what this underscore means. Okay, so you should check it out. Okay, but since it is possible that someone can pass a value that is more than 6, we need to be able to catch that. In order to do that, we can use the result enum. So instead of just returning these values, we can return an instance of the results enum this way. So this way we are now saying return OK. Since we are already doing this, let's go ahead and do it for others. Now watch what we are doing here. We're now returning results, the OK variance from the results enum for when the values are correct. But when the values are not, we return an error, which is this variant. Now here we can now define the return value. We can now say we are returning a result. Okay, if it is correct, we will return a string. So let's just pass that by reference as well, because we don't need to have ownership of it. You can even make it static, as that will improve our performance as well, our code's performance as well. So simply, we have this function that accepts this value day, which will be of type U8, but we only need 0 to 6 values. But if the user passes more than 6, we want to throw an exception, what we will do in other languages. But here in Rust, we will return the error variance of the results enum. But when the values are correct, we return the OK variance of this result enum. So, and you can see that we've defined what we're going to return. We say we are returning the result, which is exactly what we are going to return here. And then the OK value will be a string slice, and then error value will also be a static string slice. Now you can also use any value you want here, it doesn't matter the type. Now in order to use this, you can create a variable that we can call day. Let's just save 3 in it, and then we can now call get day of the week. Then we pass the day variable. Now as you know, this will return, let's just call it day in word. As you know, this will return a results enum instead. So what do we do here? Well, what we can do is and remember we have to pass this as a reference. So what we can now do is to use the match expression again. You can say match day in word, and then since we will have just 2 variants returned, the first one will be OK, and it will return a value for us. Let's just call it value. We can then print that to the terminal. We can say day 3 in this case is the word, so we can now pass the day and then the value. So we're basically saying the day 3 in this case is the day, the value, which is what will be returned here as the value. And then if an error occurs when we pass a value that this function doesn't like a value that is greater than 7, that is greater than 6, we can now get an error message. Let's just call it message here, and we can then print something to the terminal. You can say the something is not valid. You can even print what is returned there as well. Then we pass the day and then the message. So this might sound a little bit verbose. It's quite meaningful. Now watch what will happen when we run the code. Now if you run the code, you can see it says day 3 is Wednesday. Now let's try a value that is more than 6. Let's set this to 42 and run that code again. Now we get day 42 is not valid, and then the message contains invalid, which is exactly what is returned here. So I hope this makes it a lot clearer for you. To recap what we've just learned, Rust has this results enum, which has two variants, the OK and the error. So this is basically how it manages error instead of using try and catch blocks with exceptions. It uses this result enum, where it says if it is OK, then it is good. If it is error, then it means there is an error. So, and we've used that in this function that accepts the day and then check if it matches from 0 to 6, and then returns the day of the week according to the value. But in case if it is more than 7, if it is more than 6, it will return an error right here. In other languages, it will throw an exception, but Rust will return an error instead. And also pay attention that this is a match expression, which is whatever we return here is also what will be returned from this function directly. Okay, and also notice that if we add a semicolon like we just did, this is no longer being returned. We have to explicitly use the return statement, the return keyword, to return them. But to make it a lot easier, you can just delete that and then remove this semicolon to turn it from an expression statement to an expression. And then we've defined what we are returning here. We are returning a string, okay, which is going to be, that is a string slice, okay, which we are returning by reference, and it's going to be a static. And then if it is correct, then we return a string slice. If it is not, we also return a string slice in this case. In your own case, you may want to return something else. And then this is how you use it. We call the function and then pass the day. And then use match expression to check if it is OK or if there is an error. If there is OK, we print the result while accepting the value returned here. If there is an error, then we get a message of why that error occurred, and then we print it. Now, in the next video, we are going to go in more detail. We are going to explore more about error handling in Rust. This is just to get you updated with how the results enum works and how to use it. So make sure you like the video and subscribe so that you get notified once we release that video. Here on Daily Dose of Rust Language, we release video every day talking about Rust language and how to use it to make it a lot easier for everyone.